Hi everyone, it's Paula here for this week's Pocket Parenting. These Pocket Parenting episodes are here for you to give you fresh perspectives on parenting so that you can feel empowered, confident, and influential as a parent and literally have transformative mindset tools in your pocket. You know how I get ideas for these episodes is I talk to so many people. I talk to many parents. I am still seeing many clients in my psychotherapy practice. And it always seems like every week a theme appears, a theme comes up that is very prevalent with many people. And this week, the theme is stinking thinking. There's so much stinking thinking going on. And what I mean by that is thinking that is what in psychology term we call distorted. And what that means is that the thinking is not really based on what's actually going on, but it is based on some ideas and some assumptions, jumping into conclusions, finding evidence where evidence doesn't exist, and all these kinds of things. And you know what? Like the Buddha already knew this thousands of years ago. One of the paths that Buddha talks about, there's this eightfold path to enlightenment. One of the legs of that path, so to say, is the right thinking. So there's right view, right perspective, right thinking is one of them. So already thousands of years ago, we knew that this stinking thinking is something that leads to suffering, leads to pain, and it's really our thinking, our quality of thinking, whatever we put inside in our minds, whatever stimulus we let in externally, whatever stimulus we reinforce internally, really results in what is our outcome on life. This is why it is so important to stop the thinking, stinking thinking. One way that is really powerful way to do that is starting to identify these broad categories of stinking thinking. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about today is these types of cognitive distortions using their psychotherapy term. And when you can start identifying those distortions, now you have already created some space and you have already created some awareness that, hey, maybe my thinking is not quite right here. And I personally would question all kinds of thinking. Like thinking is just the brain is designed to think. It's designed to generate lots of different kinds of thoughts. So not taking everything as the absolute truth, because you have all kinds of other beautiful parts to yourself as well who can be part of that decision making process. It's not only the head that gets to decide, it's also your heart. There's actually neurons in your heart center. Neurons in your heart, and neurons are the very same brain cells that are meant to process information. So you have your heart, you have your gut, that intuition and instincts. All those get to be taken into consideration as well. But let's go back to these cognitive distortions so that you can really start identifying them. And then when you identify them, I'm going to give you four things to do at the end of this that you can start practicing in order to start shifting and stopping the stinking thinking. Okay, so here we go. Category number one is called jumping into conclusions. So this is about making judgments before we know all the information and making judgments before considering all the information. Okay, so we just make this huge leap that when A happens, then that means B. My child calls me her name. She says, I hate me. That means something, whatever that means. That means they don't love me. That means they don't care. My teenager leaves clothes on the door. That means that he is lazy. Jumping into huge conclusions, and now we're kind of judging and being critical all at the same time as well. But those are some examples of jumping into conclusions, and especially with kids, because sometimes their behavior just doesn't make sense to parents. It's so easy to jump into conclusion, make a judgment about their behavior. So be mindful of that, where you might be jumping into conclusions. So jumping into conclusions has a couple subcategories, um, which are mind reading. So thinking that we know what's going on in other people's minds. And we do this all the time, right? Well, so and so must be mad at me because I didn't do this, so I didn't go to that party. Or, oh gosh, for me, one of the big things is if I forget to get back. If I don't get back to somebody, I forget to email them or text message them, and I'm like, oh my God, they are gonna feel terrible. I feel that they are going to reject me, and actually in reality, nobody cares really. So, anyways, a mind reading. Fortune telling is another category of jumping into conclusions, which is, usually the fortune telling that our mind does, it's usually not a good fortune, right? Usually it's something bad is going to happen. Like literally, it's like jumping into the worst case scenario. So we get to be really aware and mindful of that. And then the third one probably is very familiar as well, is catastrophizing. So this tiny little thing, this tiny little event, oh, my kid didn't go to school. They're not gonna go to college. They're gonna not get a job. They're gonna end up homeless. They're gonna start using drugs, and now they're in jail. Like, oh my goodness, seriously? That's catastrophizing. These are true stories, and please do identify yourself in these too. And then it's okay to have a little smile on your face, because when we really start looking at this, it's kind of like, wow, yeah, the mind kind of makes that leap in there. So category number one is jumping into conclusions. There are three subcategories: mind reading, fortune telling, and catastrophizing. Okay, so making a mental note, and then if you listen to all the way through to this episode, I will give you 4 steps that you can do to really start addressing this. Okay. Number 2 is discounting and filtering, which means is that we're just paying attention to all the negative stuff that is happening, all the things that you might be doing wrong, all the things that your kiddo is doing wrong, everything that is a problem. Whenever you make a mistake, maybe you lost your temper, got triggered and yelled at the child, and then focusing on that for 2 to 3 days, and not realizing like, hey, you also gave your kid some kisses and hugs, and there were some fun times as well. So again, paying attention to when the mind is really wanting to focus on just one side of the story, and is discounting and filtering and rejecting or neglecting the positive experiences. That's why we get to really be mindful of letting those positive experiences to sink in, to really stay in that, not just walk past it, not just kind of keep being in that hamster wheel and just bypass these positive emotional feeling states, but actually like stamping. I say it's almost like this, imprinting it into your body by remembering, by taking a couple breaths and like recalling, like, remember, tell yourself to remember how this feels. Okay. Then number 3 is should statements. So should statements are strict rules that you set for yourself and others. And they really work against self-acceptance and accepting others as well. So they're very critical, very judgmental, very these high unrelenting standards and expectations that we set for what? For what purpose? For what reason? There really isn't a good reason for that. Should statements are often associated with guilt. So when you notice shooting yourself, know that there's also probably a lot of guilt being associated with these shoulds. Anger and resentment are also related to these should statements that we connect to other people. They should do this. They should know. My child should know better. They're already 4 years old. They should do this. That they should. My invitation around shoulds is just letting. Nothing is a should in life. Nothing other than, I think it's Aaron Beck that says, there's some basic shoulds, but they're like sun should rise and sun should set. That's about it, or something like, don't go kill anybody and things like that. But like beyond that, it's these are really arbitrary, and you are in charge of your own shoulds and your own expectations. Okay, number 4 is personalization and self-blame. So this means is that you're seeing yourself as the total cause of something bad happening, when in fact you had probably nothing or very little to do with it. So, okay, what's an example that comes to mind? Tantrums. Kiddos having tantrums when they are, sometimes all the way up to age 6 years old. Parents tend to feel like, bad parent, what am I doing wrong? I've, messed them up, or I'm doing something wrong. Or you're not doing anything wrong. Tantrums, meltdowns, and raging is totally normal at that young age. So really being mindful of like, where do you personalize things, and where you blame yourself, and where you're in that self-blame. Category number 5 is all or nothing thinking. Again, talking about this generalization, believing that if something is true in one instant, it's true in all instances. So it's this really black and white thinking. That's the either or world. That's not abundance. That's not both, and that's not possibility. But it's like it's either this way or that way. And sometimes it's really hard, especially when we apply this to relationship, because then it's either that the person is bad or they're good, they are bad or they're good. When none of that is true. People, we are very complex creatures, and it's not that simple. So to be able to hold the goodness of people with the badness of people, especially your child, when it comes to your child, to hold the misbehaviors, hold the negativity, hold the challenges, whatever you've got going on, holding that with love at the same time, and really disconnecting, de-identifying their behavior from who they are. Same for yourself. If you do something wrong, as we all do, we all make mistakes, that does not make you a bad person at all. That does not make you a bad person at all. So being very mindful, again, the invitation is here to recognize and notice the all or nothing thinking. Okay? And that is it. I think there's a bunch of other categories as well, but those are the main ones that I am inviting you to pay attention to. Jumping to conclusions, subcategories: mind reading, fortune telling, catastrophizing, then discounting and filtering, number 2. Number 3, should statements. Number 4, personalization and self-blame. Number 5, all or nothing thinking, that black and white thinking. So it's all about shifting into like my mentor, my coach Judith Rich, talks about this, and she has a book out there too. It's breaking out of the box, breaking out of the box of our habitual thinking, our habitual limited thoughts, limiting beliefs. In psychotherapy, we call those negative automatic thoughts, because it's literally unconsciously happening all the time. You might not even be aware of that. So it's about breaking into the next level, up leveling your thinking managing your mind so that you can have a whole different life experience. And I want to do a little plug in here that my new parenting course is all about that. It's all about up leveling your parenting paradigm. It's all about teaching you how to parent from a place of abundance and overflow instead of overwhelm by mastering 5 abundance principles. So it's really cool because it's a self-study course. You can just pop it in anytime, listen to the audio, watch the presentation later, or you just also get copy of the slides, and you get so many tools and practices, journaling, because my intention is really to give you everything possible to set yourself up for success so that you can stop the chaos, conflict, and stress and shift things into calm cooperation and connection. So that is out right now. You can find the link where to sign up in this email. If you're listening to this and you got an email, it'll be there. If you're listening to this somewhere else, look for the link because I will be posting it wherever I am posting this, wherever you might be listening. Okay, now back to those. Okay, what am I gonna do with this thing, Paula? Right? How do we stop the stinking thinking? So here we go. The first thing you get to ask, especially with the catastrophizing, the first thing that would work with that is it happening now? Like literally look out the window. If you are, especially with the violence going on in the world, there's a war in Ukraine, there was just a shooting in Brooklyn and all these things. So we tend to start feeling the stress and the fear and the anxiety. So then our nervous system is in this chronic stress response. So literally look out the window. Is it happening now? Is it happening now? If it's not happening, let it go. If it's happening, then you get to do something about it. But if it's not happening now, then let it go. Also, if you're feeling, well, so-and-so thinks that I'm a loser. Well, have they told you so? Have they, in those words, told you, you are a loser? I think you're a loser. As long as they haven't told you so, let it go. If they tell you so, okay, then you get to handle that. So starting with this question, is it happening now? Is it happening now? So you can start questioning it. You can start questioning your stinking thinking. The other question you can ask is, are you sure? Are you sure that my thinking is correct? Are you sure that this is what's really going on? So that you would actually explore that in a deeper level. And if you listened to me before, especially with the kiddos, like, yeah, we get to go underneath the behaviors. We could get to go beyond the behaviors and understand what's behind all that. So asking yourself, is it happening now? Looking out the window and then asking yourself, are you sure? Am I sure about this? So that's a good place to start. And the other, number 2 is, or number 3, I kind of put those two questions together, is what do I know to be true? What do I know to be true? Like a fact, not a story, not some evidence that we think. This is not a story that it counts as a fact. So what do you know to be a fact? What do you know to be true? And even writing those down so that you can ground yourself in that, what you know to be true. And then I love this question. I ask this a lot. What's the other side of the coin? Coin has 2 sides to it. Just like our mind can have many perspectives, many sides. So why do we just focus on one? So I like to think about the analogy of the coins. Okay, if we're looking at this one side, what's the other side of the coin? What's another? Basically, it just says, what's another perspective that I can have? Number 4, This is coming from our beloved Buddha again. You know, I love Buddhism and the teachings of that wisdom. Asking yourself, what am I doing? Like literally right now in this moment. So if I ask myself, what am I doing? I'm standing, I'm talking, I'm walking, I'm breathing, I'm here, I'm now. Literally, like, stop everything in their track and be present in the present moment by asking, what am I doing? And grounding yourself. Again, that's a mindfulness practice. Grounding yourself in the present moment. Okay. So that's a practice basically that will support you in stopping the stinking thinking. Asking yourself, is it happening now? Asking yourself, are you sure? Asking yourself, what do I know to be true, or what do I know to be a fact? Asking yourself, what's the other side of the coin? And then finally asking yourself, what am I doing? You know, and that doesn't mean like, I don't know what I'm doing. Literally, what are you doing in the moment? I'm washing dishes. I'm changing diaper. I don't know, whatever it is. Just notice what you're doing. And that is my pocket parenting episode for this week. I would love to see you sign up for the course that is all about discovering how to parent from overflow instead of overwhelm, where I teach those 5 abundance principles. If you sign up by midnight today, which is April 13th, midnight Pacific time, then you get to come on 5 Q&A calls with me that are there to support you, to deepen your practice, to answer your questions, and give you individualized guidance. So 5 weeks we are getting together as a group to discuss this. I really want to support you and make sure that you're successful in parenting from overflow instead of overwhelm. Okay, I'll talk to you again next week. Have a blessed rest of your week. Bye now.